BassBlaster.
All right, has forward-facing sonar changed the way you fish?
Forward-facing sonar has absolutely changed the way I fish. I've been running Garmin LiveScope before it was even LiveScope, when it was Panoptics. Back in like 2016 was my first year running it, and it's really evolved the way I fish. Me personally, I'm a shallow water angler. I was not comfortable offshore, but with LiveScope, it's allowed me to be so much more efficient and things like that. You know, with smallmouth, there's a lot of, oh, there's a bass, throw to that bass, catch that bass. But with largemouth fishing, that's not really how it is. It happens from time to time, but it allows you to fish specific structure, it just makes you more efficient. I mean, you don't waste time fishing the filler. Very rarely do I see a bass throw and catch it. A lot of times I'll throw to a specific piece of cover, see that fish appear because they're hanging so tight to the cover you don't see them. But it has changed the way I fish. It's made me a more efficient and better angler.
Are there certain baits you use more or less because of it?
It's definitely made me throw a jerkbait more. I mean, if you watch live in just about any bass tournament, jerkbait in LiveScope, any type of forward-facing sonar, it's the dominant technique. I'm not 100% sure why that is, but a jerkbait probably is the #1 bait that I throw now when it comes to LiveScope, as long as I'm fishing in a depth range that it works for.
What happens when everybody's good with LiveScope?
When everybody's good with LiveScope, it makes tournament fishing a lot harder because there's a lot less guesswork in it. It makes guys more efficient. It makes the weights in these tournaments go up. You know, your cut weights, your winning weights. And also, a double-edged sword, I do think it makes fishing tougher. I mean, I've already seen over the past couple years, fish tend to be a little bit smarter. It used to be you see one out there, especially when it comes to smallmouth, you throw over there and he swims over and eats it. That's not the case. You kind of got to talk to him. You got to throw the right bait, have the right color, the right cadence. And I do think it makes fishing a little bit more difficult because fish are getting fished for in places that they used to never get fished for. That was their safe haven, and they're no longer safe.
And do you have any residual bad feelings at your dad for calling you Junior when you're not really a junior?
No hard feelings here. I mean, it would have made it a lot easier if he'd just go by Wendell. That's his real name. So I'm going to start calling him Wendell if he's going to call me Junior.
Has forward-facing sonar changed the way you fish?
It absolutely does. So what I've learned is that everything that I thought I knew in the last 50 years about how bass relate to structure is probably not spot on, because now I'm seeing fish just roaming around in open water. I always thought they're going to be by a stump or a rock or a dock or something like that. So I'm always looking at it. I'm always scanning around and trying to see, and you see everything with it, and it definitely, every single day, makes a difference in how many I catch.
2, 3, 2, 0. Will it change how you fish the more you use it?
The biggest thing about forward-facing sonar is the lake that you go to is totally, and just based on how it's laid out, is going to determine whether Mega Live is going to be a big deal or not. So if you go to Okeechobee and you're fishing the grass, or you're fishing flooded bushes or something like that, it's not a factor. But on these deeper, clear highland reservoirs, there's not a time when you're not going to use it. So it's so much about the lake you're fishing, the time of the year, the seasonal pattern, and how the fish are set up.
Are there lures that you use more or less because of it now?
Without a doubt, you have to use lures that you can fish in the water column, because so often you're seeing fish that are suspended. So, a jerkbait is for sure something I use a ton already, but it is probably the #1 lure for forward-facing sonar. Swim baits, Demiki rigs, drop shots, things like that, that you can count down to a certain zone and then swim through it. Those are baits that are going to be very efficient and effective for any time you're using that forward sonar.
Okay, 2 more questions. One is, what happens when everybody has it?
Well, I think now that most of the pros have some type of forward-facing sonar, and there's just a little bit of a learning curve. I think some of the guys that really got into it early, and because it's very fickle, and that you have to have your boat rigged properly and your settings just right. It's not like a normal automatic setting, you just turn it on and work. There's a little bit of tweaking with it. So with a little bit of time, everybody is going to get better at it. I've learned so much in the last month about it already. So the learning curve is pretty steep, and the guys that got into it early are, you know, they've been reaping the rewards of that, but now it'll definitely level out, and it is here to stay.
All right, last one, are we ever going to see a Kevin Van Dam setting on Mega Live?
You know, you never know about that as far as a setting, but I think you're going to see things marketed towards live sonar. I mean, we're already in the process of developing lures just because of forward-facing sonar. So you're going to see a lot of trends in that, because again, it is a big advancement right now in sonar technology, and everybody's hungry to learn about it.
Has forward-facing sonar changed the way you fish?
Most definitely.
How so?
I mean, it just allows you to fish for fish that you would have never known that were there, whether they're suspended or just being able to find fish after you catch a couple in one spot, knowing that you just have to cast over here after that school moves, and it's made me a lot more efficient fisherman.
Will it change the way you fish even more over time, do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's just it's something that it's here to stay. It's going to be here, and if you're against it, you better get with it, because you're going to get smoked if you don't have it.
Well, what will happen when everybody has it?
I mean, here's the deal. You still have to find the fish. You know, it's not like it's a magic tool. I mean, you still have to be in the right area of the lake at the, you know, and still have to find fish. It's not like it's just, it is a magic tool, but you still have to go and find fish. So it's just, if you're not a good fisherman and you're not around fish, you're not going to catch any fish. But it's just a tool. When you find the areas where the fish are, it allows you to be, what should I say, just a lot more productive being able to catch them.
What baits do you use more or less as a result of having it?
Once you get it's different.
You know, I mean, it just depends. If they're suspended, you're going to use more like a swim bait style or a jerk bait style bait. And then, you know, if they're closer to the bottom, then I'm going to use, you know, a crankbait or maybe a drop shot, something like that. So I think you're going to see a lot more baits that are like a suspending style bait, like a jerk bait or, you know, a jig-headed swim bait to kind of target those fish that are up in the water column.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. My last question is, do you feel responsible for making a lot of fishermen poor because of that jackhammer?
No, I don't. Well, maybe, yeah, I do feel responsible. And I thank them for buying it. And I hope they've got a lot of fish on it too.
You know, I've been asked this question about forward-facing sonar a lot, and Brad and I kept telling me, hey, you need to get one, you need to get one. I said, Brad, it ain't gonna change the way I fish. And it hasn't changed the way I fish, it's enabled me to catch fish that I never would have thrown at, even in shallow water. I actually did a video on it yesterday about how even in shallow water, it helps you to be able to, like if you're pulling up to a bank and you're wanting to stay in that 3 to 4 foot water or 2 foot water, you can actually see out in front of you how the slope comes up, or if it's going to get shallower. It also helps you see ditches and stuff, like when you're going, like you're up in shallow water. I went over this yesterday. Had a place at home that I was catching them, and I was setting in like 4, and it comes up to like 1, and then there was a ditch that cuts through it, and you can actually see over the hump, the belly of the ditch, and up the other side, and the fish were in the belly of the ditch. So it's definitely a game changer, but it's also one of those deals where you need to learn to be able to, sometimes you just need to shut it off and go fishing. You got to know when to say stop and go do something else, because you can get caught up in fishing for fish that will not bite. It's kind of like sight fishing. You got to know when to say, hey, they win, and move on.
All right. Are there certain baits you use more or less because of it?
I would say yes. I throw a jerk bait quite a bit more now than I used to, because it seems like a jerk bait's really a good bait to be able to trigger those fish into biting, and you can watch your jerk bait and actually watch the response of the fish as you're working your bait. You know, whether to speed it up, slow it down, short twitches, long pauses, short pauses. So I throw a jerk bait a lot more now than I used to.
What's going to happen when everybody has it and knows how to use it?
I keep saying this. This is what I keep saying. I keep saying that all these offshore places are going to take it's going to take a toll on it, and the guys on the bank are going to. There's going to be a reinvention of the bank fishermen, but it hasn't happened yet. So I've been saying it for years now with all the technology and, you know, Lowrance and active target and all this stuff and side imaging. But everybody just keeps winning offshore. So one of these days it might happen, but I keep saying that I think it will.
Okay. Last question. When did you decide that normal shorts weren't for you?
In Florida. It's a kind of a running joke. Me and my wife and one of my best friends and his wife were on vacation in Florida, and we went into a Reebok store, and I don't know, green has always been my favorite color, and we were in there it was like one of those warehouse stores or whatever, clearance stores or whatever it was, and I saw a pair of just green shorts. I told my wife, I said, I'm buying them. She goes, those look hideous. I said, I think those would go good with my jersey. And ever since then, I've been wearing bright colored shorts. So, I don't know. I kind of like them, the new technology with fabric and stuff. They dry quick, they keep you cool. And I'm a big fan of golf shorts now. So, the brighter colors, the better.
There we go.
Pastel man.
Has forward-facing sonar changed the way you fish?
Forward-facing sonar has not changed the way I fish, and I'm not real sure it ever will.
Okay, why is that?
I'm just I think honestly, there are guys that are more talented fishing-wise. I know I'm gonna get in trouble, so I don't care. There's you know, guys rely on technology to catch fish, and there's some guys that rely on their instincts to catch fish. I would just as soon you rely on your instincts to catch fish instead of forward-facing sonar.
Okay. Are there any baits that you use more or less since it's come on the scene?
You know, probably the one bait that I have used way more and keep it in my hand, maybe more than I should, but it's okay. I still love it. Is the Z-Man Jackhammer. It's you know, it's been around. I remember when we were talking about a $16 chatterbait, and would it even sell? And I believe we have proved to the world that it will, and it does catch fish better than any bladed jig out there on the market, bar none.
Now, there's this young fisherman in Arkansas, Bo Browning. Is it true he's 10 times the fisherman of his old man?
He is not 10 times the fisherman that his old man is. He's only 9. So I still got a little edge on him right now.
Me personally, yes and no, but I'm fighting those demons. I mean, I know guys are catching fish doing it. I am learning how to do it. I have the Garmins, I have the best technology to do it, but I'm fighting it because so much of the way I grew up fishing and the way I like to fish is off instinct and fishing shallow cover, and I'm utilizing the Panoptix forward-facing sonar to help me do that. But as far as getting out in the middle of the lake and catching those suspended fish, man, I haven't mastered it yet.
Will it change how you fish more into the future, do you think?
No. I mean, as far as, like I said, you know, certain times of year when you're fishing suspended fish, yes, I'm going to have to conform, but the reason I enjoy bass fishing, you know, from the start has been trusting my instincts, getting on the bank, or, you know, really structured type fishing. And forward-facing sonar does help me see that there's actually fish there. Then it's my job to figure out how to do it. So, yeah, that's a weird answer because it's loaded. It seems like I'm playing both sides of the fence, and I am. It is going to help me, and I am going to conform, but at the same time, I'm not. There that is.
What do you think will happen when everybody has it?
Man, when everybody, almost everybody does have it now, right? It's going to put a lot of pressure on those fish that have never seen a bait before. I've said it for a lot of years. There's fish in all these lakes that never swim to the bank or very seldom swim to the bank. So they've never seen a lot of these baits. They're getting caught. They're going to get caught more often.
And I think the traditional bank beaters at some point are going to go back to catching a lot of fish, because those fish up there on the bank are seeing less and less pressure every day.
Are there certain baits you use more or less now because of it?
Yeah, I would say a jerk bait for sure.
Is more?
100%. Yeah, I use a lot more, because you could watch that bait come back to you and see how the fish are reacting and get after them.
Okay. And then the last question is it true that you dye your mustache?
No, that's not true.
It's true.
I don't dye it. I cut out the white.
All right. Has forward-facing sonar changed the way you fish?
Yeah, absolutely it has.
How so?
Well, it's opened my mind up to more about what's going on around me in my environment, my surroundings, like seeing how fish react to my baits and how they don't react, and seeing more of how the bait is moving around, like. But yeah, it just opens your eyes up to, you know, more about what's going on, you know, in all, you know, phases of the water column.
Okay. Has it changed? I'm sorry. Will it change more the more you? Will it change your fishing the more you use it?
I mean, yeah, I believe the more that you use it, you know, the more you're going to adapt to the benefits that you gain from it. And you know, I'm a little disappointed in myself, because I've had it when Garmin came out with their original Panoptics, 4 years ago. I've had it since then, and I've taken advantage of it. But I think the learning curve with forward-facing sonar has somewhat passed me in the last 6 months to a year. And it's seeing these younger guys, how they've adapted to it, really tells me that I need to dive down deeper, because there's more things, there's more minute details that you can gain from it than I actually realized from the beginning.
What'll happen when everybody has it?
Well, when everybody has it, hopefully you have another curve that starts. That's like one of the biggest secrets to me for success in professional fishing. There's always a curve. Sometimes it's a learning curve or it's a technique curve, but you got to stay in front of it. Well, when everybody has this, it's going to open up a window for guys going back to grinding around the bank and doing things where you wouldn't utilize forward-facing sonar. So it's gonna open up a window for guys to capitalize on that 80% of the water that nobody's looking at.
What baits do you use more or less because of it?
I would say use a jerk bait more now, like a Spro mixed stick, than I did before, because of forward-facing sonar. Because you know you can actually work that bait down to the fish, and you can see how they react to it. You can keep it in place and keep it right in front of them. It's like the perfect bait for forward-facing sonar.
Okay. Is it true you were kicked out of the minor leagues for the most beans between the eyes of people?
Yes, I threw it. I don't remember how many I threw at, but I threw at a lot of guys. I had several guys charge the mound. That didn't go good for most of them. But yeah, that's why I was kicked out.
Yeah, forward-facing sonar has absolutely changed the way that I fish. You know, this is my first season having forward-facing sonar with the new Humminbird Mega Live, and it absolutely, in a short amount of time, has changed everything that you think on the water. It's one of those deals that you have to have it in one way, shape, or form, or you're going to get left behind. You have to be able to, you learn how to read it, know what you're looking at, track your bait, all of that, and it 100% has changed the way that we fish, especially early in the year. Up where I'm at, smallmouth fishing, it is an absolute game changer as well. So, I mean, overall, forward-facing sonar has 100% changed, you know, our sport in a short amount of time, and you have to have it.
Okay. Are there any baits that you fish more or less as a result of having it?
I wouldn't say that there's any of them that I fish more or less. You know, I mean, the jerkbait is the #1, I think, for the forward facing, which I've thrown. I throw all year round, regardless. I always have. Being from up north, that's one of my favorite ways to catch them. But there's nothing really I would say that it has made me throw more of. You know, I think that there is a part of it that you might get trapped in, and you know, trying to chase some of those fish. It can be a little bit detrimental. So I kind of utilize it as a tool, you know, while I'm fishing, basically.
Okay. What happens when everybody has it and they all know how to use it?
That's a good question. You know, right now there's a handful of guys that are really good at the forward-facing sonar and catching them that way. Once everybody has it, and we're getting real close to that point now, but I think at the same time, I think what's going to happen is those fish will get accustomed to the sound of that transducer. It'll make it a little bit tougher to catch them. Right now, the fish that we're catching because of forward-facing sonar previously were virtually uncatchable fish. So I think what it's going to end up doing is a lot of stuff's going to turn back to kind of the old school route again. Some of those fish on the bank are getting less pressure than they have in the past, you know, because of it. So it's going to really make guys rely more on their instincts, you know, because it can be easy to get caught up in that forward-facing sonar.
Okay, man. Last question is, if you had to pick either breakfast sausage, bacon, or an omelet, which one are you picking every single day if you had to eat it every single day for breakfast?
I'm a breakfast sausage guy, man. I love breakfast sausage. I can't knock on bacon by any means, but definitely for me it's breakfast sausage.
Absolutely, because I can see things that I could never see before. You know, how the fish, where the fish are out there in the open water column, and how they react to my bait. You know, for so long with 2D sonar, fish would show up under the boat, and I thought I had found the fish, but I've noticed on some lakes now with forward sonar, a lot of fish are actually coming to the boat just because they're curious. I never knew that till we had that, so it's definitely changed the game.
Will it change how you fish more going forward?
I think it has to. You know, with the full field having forward sonar these days, you have to factor that in. Even if you're a person that likes to beat the bank, you know, I can see cover on the bank, I can see fish relating to the shoreline. So if you're not using it, I just think it's a disadvantage overall for tournament fishermen.
What do you think will happen when everybody has it everywhere?
Well, I think it'll be just like, you know, what we had with down imaging and side view and improved 2D sonar. You know, it's just another tool, and it just makes us more efficient as anglers. When everybody has it, it just comes down to the ones who are better using it, you know, and who utilize that to up their game.
Okay. What baits are you using more or less now as a result of having it?
Well, I would say I'm using a jerkbait more, but I've always loved throwing a jerkbait. I'm just so much more efficient with it now. I'm seeing what I used to try to picture under the water. Now I get a real-time view of the fish and how it's reacting to my bait and what my cadence needs to be and things like that. I'm probably using the bottom bouncing baits a little bit less, just because, you know, and slow moving baits, because I'm able to target specific fish and kind of keep moving a lot of times.
And then last question is the Revital Outdoor stuff. When you take it, do you ever see pink elephants or flying unicorns?
I haven't yet, but I sure do sleep good. And you know, as I'm getting a little bit older and before some of these big tournaments like Redcrest here, I have a little trouble getting to sleep night before the tournament. It works great. Sleep good, I wake up, no back pain, ready to go the next day.
You know, the traditional Tennessee River ledge fishing, the way we fish, forward-facing sonar really hasn't changed it, because, you know, scanning those schools of fish, you're going to roll over them anyway before you fish for them. The one thing that it has done with the offshore fishing is a lot of times in the past you catch those fish and they start busting up and breaking up, and you have to crank up and run around and re-find them. Forward-facing sonar, you don't have to do that. But now when you get into the reservoirs where the fish are suspended, especially pre-spawn, if you don't have forward-facing sonar, you're at a huge disadvantage before you ever get into the water. It's allowed people access to fish that used to, you couldn't catch those suspended fish because you didn't know where they were exactly. Now you can, so you can approach them different directions with different cast angles, different retrieves, different baits. So it absolutely changes the fishing game, no question.
What will happen when everybody has it?
What happens with anything when everybody has it, no different from the Alabama rig back in the day. I think the fish actually adjust to what happens in the water. Maybe not so much with sonar as it does with particular baits. We're already running, I'm running 4 units on my boat plus the live scope, so you've already got all kinds of pings in the water, so it hasn't seemed to affect it yet. I think it probably eventually will. They'll get used to that sound and they'll start shying away from it. I think we're a long ways away from that, but having it's kind of like having side scan and side view, down view. It's you can see them, but not everybody can catch them. So catching them is still the deal. And a lot of these guys have really perfected that thing. I'm an image guy myself. I love the clear view, down view, side view stuff. I've got a lot to learn too with the forward-facing sonar, but I don't know that it will change all the fishing game, but they'll definitely adjust to it. They always do.
Okay. Are there certain baits you use more or less now as a result of having it?
Well, I've always been a big jerkbait guy anyway, so it really hasn't affected me on the jerkbait bite. The one thing that it has done for me a lot, like especially around docks, is it's made me slow down and throw a wacky rig, throw a small Kitech type swim bait or stuff like that. So the spinning rod tackle, it has brought into my arsenal a lot more, because a lot of those fish do get casted at because a lot of guys can see them. But the jerkbait part of the world, I've been fishing that since I was a kid at Pickwick growing up with the smallmouth, so that hasn't changed, but it has definitely changed my finesse tactics.
Okay. Last question. Is it true that your pupils get dilated and you foam at the mouth whenever the deep crankbait bite is on?
That's pretty accurate. Usually about the 1st or 2nd week of May, I start getting twitchy and I don't sleep well at night. And that's when I like the down view, the side view, clear view. So the offshore crankbait fishing is absolutely the most fun time of the year for me, because you can catch so many of them and you can catch great big ones too. And as long as I've been doing that, it's a pretty easy style of fishing for me.
Absolutely.
In what way?
In a way that now you can see what's in front of you. You can see stumps. I like to fish shallow, but it lets you know what type of structures underneath the water, in front of you. Obviously, if you have stumps or trees, rock, whatever it might be, any type of thing that gives you information, because that's what we do. We gather all information, throw it in a big map, and roll around and make a decision based off of that. So for me, any kind of information like that is good information.
I gotta ask, does it change the way you frog fish?
Has it changed the way I frog fish? No, it has not changed. Actually, the only way it's done is I end up dragging the grass and the limbs hooked on my active target, transducer. So a lot of times it's almost a hindrance when it comes to that, but it's still a good tool, and that's the beauty of it. It's more of the active target is more of an open water type of thing. And for you froggers out there, that's a good thing, because it gets more people off the bank. So you guys that want to be like John Cox and just cover water and not even have nothing on his trolling motor, you can be like him and just roll and catch big ones. So there's always a balance on everything. Is it way? It's a great tool, but also for the frogging, now you're good.
What will happen when everybody has it?
I think if everybody has it, it's going to make them a better fisherman. They're going to make them more aware of their environment and how the fish react to the baits, whether you need to slow down, pick it up, and actually watch, the actions of what the fish are doing. When you fish for spotted bass, you can watch them actually feed underneath you. It's really cool. again, it's just information and processing that information on bait selection, for rigging, whatever it might be, that'll help you become a better angler. So I think it's going to be better for everyone in catching more fish, because that's what we want to do and that's what we want to promote.
Are there baits you use more or less as a result of having it?
That's a good question. No, I think that it's basically just more information. I think the bait selection I use, my style of fishing, whether it's power fishing or finesse fishing, I'm using the same baits, the same rigging. It's just a matter of now I'm more precise on knowing exactly where the fish are located at. You know, when you scan and looking around, trying to check where they're at, you're more efficient with making your casts and your presentations, and you're able to watch the fish's reaction on a bait change or a color change.
Okay, last question, Dean. Why can you not name any bait that doesn't have the word frog in it? Like the fighting frog is not a frog. What's the story?
Well, because it's one big family, and everybody knows the bronze-eye frog. I designed that back right after the Classic in 2004 at Wiley, and it just stuck. So everybody calls me the frog guy, so why not embrace it?
It has not changed the way I fish, but it has changed fishing.
It's changed fishing. Do you think it'll change the way you fish the more that you use it?
Definitely.
In what way?
I have been a guy that likes to look at a water to see a shad flicker, to make a split-second cast, and I've never been a fan of looking at a screen, so I find myself, the more this technology advances, looking at a screen a lot more, and I'm not sure that that's a reason that I started bass fishing.
What will happen when everybody has it?
Everybody that I compete against pretty much does have it. It's just changed the entire dynamic of tournament bass fishing, in my opinion.
What baits do you use less or more now that it exists?
I probably flip and pitch way less and have more reaction style baits in my arsenal. Although I am learning how to mold this into the way I like to fish. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of practice.
All right, is it true that you don't use spinning rods because you think they're fairy wands and you're too manly for that?
No, that's absolutely not true. I actually fish a spinning rod way more than most people would ever believe.
Okay, I don't believe it.
In addition to my plethora of spinning rods that I have in my boat, believe it or not, I am probably the only professional tournament bass angler that carries an 8-weight fly rod in his boat.
Why on earth? It's not even legal, man. What is that?
It actually is legal in MLF. I do have a plan to catch some smallmouth on it with a black marabou jig on the end of it when we finally get up north to where they live. But I'm actually addicted to fly fishing, and you know, I might maybe be able to make that work sometime.
You're gonna hook your cameraman bad.
Absolutely. I'm a fan. In fact, I think I was one of the first guys to really utilize it, going all the way back to the original Panoptics that Garmin had, the Gen 1 Panoptics. Caught a lot of fish doing that, and there's no doubt that it has changed. You have to dedicate time each event, and we're learning now that you have to do that almost all times of the year. You know, before it might have just been a colder water deal where you were looking for suspended fish or maybe a post spawn, but now it's like even during the spawn, it's changed because you're able to see stuff in shallow water, maybe not necessarily suspended fish, but you're looking at isolated targets. Some guys have proved that it works, 12 months out of the year, so you definitely have to dedicate time in much the same way I think when we had the Alabama rig, you couldn't discount it. You couldn't just say I'm not gonna have that as part of my arsenal because there are too many guys can beat you with it. So you had to dedicate time with your practice just to keep it honest, make sure that it was not in play. That way you could focus on other things. And I think it's the same way with the forward-facing technology. Although
even more so than the Alabama rig. I think it's showing that it plays even more often than the Alabama rig did.
Okay. Are there certain baits you use more or less because of it?
I found that I use a swim bait more because of it. I catch most of my fish on the forward face and on swim bait, and that's just what I did from the beginning, from Generation 1 Garmin Panoptics. I used a swim bait. There's guys that are starting to experiment now with different style baits, and you're seeing a jerk bait, come into play with that stuff, obviously. And I've caught some fish on a jerk bait, but still, to me, the swim bait that's my go-to. Like, that's my confidence bait when I'm using the forward-facing stuff, and I feel like I need to get a bite. That's going to be the first rod I pick up is some type of swim bait, like the Berkeley 3.3 power swimmer, anything like that. That's going to be my go-to.
Okay. What's going to happen when everybody has it and knows how to use it?
I think that over time, like everything in this sport that you see over the years, once these fish start to see it over and over, it's going to get harder. The Alabama rig still works. It's not as good as it was when it first came out. And so I think that right now we're fishing for fish that are just not used to being fished for. Probably maybe fish that have never gotten fished for. A lot of the fish we're catching on that, I don't think they ever come to the bank. Like they're a nomadic subspecies of bass sometimes that just don't ever make it in there to the shore. I think they spend their lives out there offshore, suspended most of the time, and they bite easy because they're just not used to seeing baits presented to them. So over time, just like anything in bass fishing, as they start to see more and more pressure, I think they'll get harder to catch. They maybe even get to the point where they don't even suspend near as much as they used to, and they may gravitate back to the shore. Then all of a sudden you may see an uptick, in the guys that are really good power fishermen up shallow that have kind of stayed away from the forward facing stuff. They may kind of hit a growth spurt, so to speak, where they start catching them again, and the forward faces guys see a decline. I mean, it's entirely possible that something like that happens, I believe.
Okay. Is it true that you said that nobody could possibly beat you on Lake Murray any time of the year?
I've never in my life said anything of the sort. I've had some good history there. Like Lake Murray's been really good to me, but I know, like deep in my heart, I know I've not spent the time on that lake that I should have, living on it. So every time we have an event there, I get knots in my stomach, like, man, you should have been preparing more over these last couple of years when we've not had an event here. And it's always like that. Like you always feel like you should know your home lake extremely well, and in a way I do. Like I'm comfortable with the lake, and a lot of times that matters maybe more so than actually knowing specific places to go. You build a certain comfort level with the lake, and you kind of get in tune with it. So maybe you haven't spent a whole lot of time out there in a given year, but once you get on it for a day or two, like it clicks. It suits your eye. You've learned how the lake fishes over the course of many years being there. So there's a lot to be said about that. But no, I never feel like if we suit up and we go out there on a given day, like it's never in my mind that like I know I'm going to beat everybody today. I have the potential to be beat that day, but it's been good to me in the past. So if I don't win the next couple times we go there, I'm not going to kick myself. I've got good history there. I love the lake. She's been good to me, but sooner or later I'm going to have a bad tournament there. I know that.
There's no doubt forward-facing sonar's changed the way I fished. I mean, the biggest thing that I got caught up in is I came on board with Garmin like the first year that Panoptics hit and won a tournament on Table Rock totally using forward-facing sonar. So I bought pretty heavily into it, but as the technology has advanced, it's like the younger generation has just gone to the next level with it, and I feel like I'm behind now.
Will it change how you fish more that you use it?
I definitely feel like that is a definite possibility. I mean, the thing about it is there are going to be times as the seasons progress where you've got to just get away from forward-facing sonar. There's certain things that it's valuable for, even when you're fishing super shallow, but there still comes that point in time where when you're fishing visible objects on the bank, you really got to kind of tune out and just get back to the basics. Did that answer that question appropriately?
Yeah.
All right.
Are there baits that you use more or less because of having it now?
You know, I'm definitely going to say that there are certain baits that that I do throw more because of forward-facing sonar. You know, a swim bait is just such a phenomenal tool with forward-facing sonar. I mean, a jerk bait for me used to be more seasonal, and now that we have a tool to catch fish out in front of us that we can see and realize where those fish are actually positioned in the water column, McStick becomes a much more valuable tool throughout the course of the year.
Okay, last question. What's the difference between Andy's frozen custard and ice cream?
The biggest difference is between Andy's frozen custard and ice cream is Andy's beats them up 100% of the time. I mean, we've got sweatshirts that basically say that. So Andy's frozen custard's the way to go.
Yes, I think it has for all of us. Forward-facing sonar, it gives you so much feedback on everything. You can learn an area faster with it. You can see how the fish are reacting to your lure to make adjustments. Without a doubt, it really hasn't changed the way I fish. I think it's just made the learning curve for the day or for a new lake a little faster. I don't really feel like it's changed the way I approach things, but it's absolutely, I think, made me more efficient and made everybody else more efficient.
Will it change the way you fish going forward, do you think?
I think any technology like that will. You know, when you put something like that out into the world, you know, absolutely it's gonna have an impact. But most things, you know, most new things have a real fast high and then they kind of stable off. And I think that's what we'll see with the forward-facing sonar. I think as more and more people get it and more people are using it, a lot of these fish that are out suspended that aren't used to seeing baits are going to be seeing baits and they're going to get harder to catch. It's kind of like the Alabama rig when it first came out. It was like the instant cure-all for these lakes that you couldn't catch them on anything else, and now it's not. Now it's not as easy because every fish in the lake has grown accustomed to it or been tricked by it. So the same thing with this. It's new right now, or relatively new, but it's getting put to use constantly. More and more guys have it. So the new wears off of anything, but it's here to stay without a doubt. But I don't think that the overall longevity of it will ever go away or will ever be not as effective. But I think that it will become more of a level playing field as more and more people get it and learn it.
Okay. Are there baits that you use more or less now because of it?
Not for me, no, not really. Maybe in the sense of fishing for suspended fish, just because that as a technique requires certain baits. But typically, my whole deal with forward-facing sonar is not really that it enables me to be more effective with a bait. It enables me to get my bait more effectively in front of fish, be it a jerk bait, a swim bait, a jig, be it fishing the edge of an outside grass line and being able to make a perfect cast every time, or be it looking at them on boat docks and flipping and catching them. It lets you see what you're around better and be more effective. I don't really feel like it's really made me change the baits that I use. If the conditions call for the conditions and the time of year and all call for a bait X, that's still what is going to work. Forward-facing sonar just makes you more efficient with it.
Oh yeah, it's a awesome tool. You know, I use the Active Target by Lowrance, and not only is it great for fun fishing, crappie fishing, or tournament fishing, it'll make you sit there and where you'd go down the bank and you'd catch one and you'd go on, used to. Now you might see 3 or 4 or 5 sitting there, and you'll sit there and catch them. And so it's changed the game of fishing to tournament fishing.
Do you think it'll change the way you fish the more that you use it in the future?
Oh yeah, and it'll change the way that I fish. And I never was really an out in the wide open. If I was fishing wide open, I was fishing on a ledge or creek channel or something that I knew. But now, you'll all be out there in 100 foot of water. And our guys have shown that, like Wheeler, catching them at the last tournament out there, over 100 foot of water. So, if you don't learn how to use it and you don't change with the times, you're going to get left behind. You know, another thing it's great for, it's great for the bait companies. You know, there's going to be more jerk baits, more swim baits, more crankbaits, spinner baits, anything, chatterbait, anything that goes up in that water column is going to be a game changer for that active target.
Is there any baits that you use more or less because of it?
Swim bait.
More?
More. I use swim bait a lot more now, and I will always have one tied on because you never know when you're going to see one just out there swimming around. You're going to have a swim bait, a jerk bait, or something that when you're just going down the bank or wherever you're fishing and you scan it out there and there's one sitting there, you're going to have a bait that you can throw to that fish right then.
The last question, is it true, Tommy, that you still fish that hardhead about 90% of the time?
I fish it a lot. I'm going to say maybe not 90, but it's got to be in the high 80s, you know. And two, you know, you can see it on that active target. And you get in the right situation, and I'll be able to see how many fish is sitting there. Or, you know, they're sitting on this part of the rock or old house place or whatever. They're not all over here where you used to just pull up there and throw. You're going to know exactly where to throw. And I've done that the last couple of tournaments, so it's definitely a game changer.
Oh, no doubt. You catch yourself staring at it, probably not staring where you're going. And it's things like bumping a stump or something you would have never done because you're looking down. But probably haven't seen anything change our world and our sport more than forward-facing sonar.
Will it change more of how you fish in the future?
I think everybody will probably answer that question, yes. Just knowing what's around you at all times, there's no guessing game. You know, are there fish in that brush pile? Are there fish under that dock? No doubt, for sure.
What will happen when everybody has it?
It will level out. It will become, you know, just part of, just like when Sonar first came out, and I remember paper graphs even, that's how I'm dating myself, but I remember all of that and how all of that changed, and we went from a flasher to units you could actually see the fish, and so I think it's going to even out, but it's definitely here to stay. It's amazing.
Last question. What baits do you use more or less now that you have?
More lures that suspend. It's amazing to me. We've always fished bottom lures, and it's amazing to me how many fish are in the middle part or upper part of the water column out over deeper water. So I think you're seeing a lot more jerk baits, a lot more slow sinking, wacky rig style lures out in open water trying to catch a fish that's over 20, but in 3 or 4 foot of water. There's a lot more fish in the lakes than we ever thought were.
Can you give me a couple of examples of your favorite baits by name that you like to fish with
Yeah, I think one thing that I've seen is deep timber, like timber that comes up over 50 foot of water and then like 10 or 15, and I like to bank like an Azuma crankbait into those trees, and it's amazing to see how you need to change cadence, even on a crankbait, not so much a jerkbait, to be able to get those fish to bite. But those Azuma Z-Boss 8, Z-Boss 10s, things like that. And I tell you what else is cool, kind of off the question a little bit, but like skipping docks. We've always been like, man, if you hold on just a sec. if you ding a dock or it makes noise, and you actually see those fish just run now. So definitely being quiet around docks is something we always thought was important. Now we know it's important.
No, it really hasn't, you know. It helps the way I fish because I know what's always going on around me. So, you know, it hasn't really changed the way I fish, but like I said, I'm always aware of what's around me. I'm a shallow water guy, so, but you would think it's more of an offshore deal, but you know what? Shallow, it helps out a lot. I can really see what's going on around me, whether it be grass, you know, the way the bank lays out, you know, rocks, all that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fishing you know, the same I've always been. So.
Into the future, will it change the way you fish? Do you think, or no?
You know, it might. You know, watching Michael Neal, you know, he's always been a real power fisherman, and always had a bait caster in his hand, it seemed like. But you know, he's changed up a lot, you know, which surprised me, and he's been kicking some butt. So maybe it will in the future. I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Good. What will happen when everybody has it and uses it?
I like that everyone's starting to get into that live scope game, because I think for me as a shallow water guy, I think it helps me out, because we go to these lakes now, everyone's offshore, everyone's out there, and I got the bank all to myself, you know, for the most part. So just keep buying them, and that'll work out better for me, I think.
Are there any baits that you use more or less now as a result of live sonar?
You know, I'm not a jerkbait guy. You know, that's the big rant right now is jerkbait. You know, with live sonar, I throw jerkbait a lot more than I ever have. You know, it's changed me up a little bit. I'll get to staring at that thing, and next thing you know, an hour's went by in practice. I'm like, all I've been doing is looking at that screen. So, yeah, jerkbait definitely. I've never been a jerkbait guy, and you know, I've been throwing a lot more than I have.
Okay. All right. Last question is, you got a coffee and whiskey sponsor. That's morning and evening. What do you do in the afternoon?
You already know. I pour me a cup of that Freedom whiskey and kick back and relax. And in the morning, I'll drink that outdoor coffee. Campfire, that's what I like. It's hazelnut. It's pretty dang good. But yeah, go check them out. Good stuff.